Okay, we are remembering this week, and we see it happening more and more. Small, interesting shops and stores that make our city unique are either slowing down or shutting down.
New York City's local shops are disappearing at an alarming rate. The perfect storm of skyrocketing rents, increased robberies, weak law enforcement, crushing taxes, and fierce online competition has pushed many beloved neighborhood stores to close their doors forever. For over 100 years, these shops were the backbone of NYC communities. Now, they're vanishing faster than ever. Rising rents in New York City have become a death sentence for local shops, particularly in areas experiencing rapid gentrification. Take Maria's Deli in Brooklyn. After serving the community for 45 years, her monthly rent jumped from $3,000 to an eye-watering $8,500 overnight. Like most small business owners in NYC, Maria doesn't own her building, leaving her at the mercy of landlords hungry for higher profits. This story plays out across all 5 boroughs. These small shops typically operate on razor-thin profit margins of just 1 to 3%, making even modest rent increases devastating to their bottom line. When a bodega making $100,000 in annual revenue faces a $2,000 monthly rent hike, that's $24,000 a year straight out of their already slim profits. The math simply doesn't work anymore. The human cost is heartbreaking. These aren't just businesses, they're community pillars where neighbors catch up over coffee, kids get their after-school snacks, and elderly residents find friendly faces who check on them daily. When Tony's Hardware on the Lower East Side closed after 71 years because of a rent spike, the neighborhood lost more than just a place to buy tools. They lost a gathering spot where 3 generations of families got home repair advice and shared local news. The problem has accelerated since 2020, with commercial rent increases averaging 35% across Manhattan. Landlords, seeing the potential for higher-paying tenants like banks or chain stores, are systematically pushing out small businesses that have served their neighborhoods for decades. Without any commercial rent control laws in NYC, there's nothing stopping property owners from doubling or tripling rents when leases expire. As these local shops get priced out of their longtime locations, they face another cruel reality. There's nowhere else to go. Affordable commercial spaces have become as rare as a quiet day in Times Square. And with reduced police presence in many neighborhoods, the remaining shops face another growing threat: a wave of robberies targeting vulnerable small businesses. While officers patrol Central Park and flood the subway system following recent high-profile incidents, neighborhood shops have been left largely unprotected. This shift in police resources has created what local store owners call dead zones, areas where response times to robbery calls can stretch beyond 30 minutes. A local business owner who runs his family's grocery in Queens experienced this firsthand. "I called 911 3 times during a robbery last month," he recalls. The guy took his time, filled 2 duffel bags with merchandise, and even came back for cigarettes. Police showed up an hour later. This story reflects a broader trend. According to recent NYPD data, commercial robberies have jumped 45% compared to last year, with small businesses bearing the brunt of these crimes. The impact ripples through entire neighborhoods. When shops close due to repeated robberies, it creates a domino effect. Remaining businesses become more vulnerable, foot traffic decreases, and entire blocks can transform from vibrant commercial strips to shuttered storefronts within months. Police resources tell the story. While Times Square's tourist areas have 1 officer for every 250 feet, residential neighborhoods average 1 patrol car for every 30 blocks. The math doesn't add up. Major retail chains can afford private security, but local shops operate on margins too thin to hire protection. They're left with a terrible choice: risk their safety by staying open or close their doors for good. This creates a vicious cycle. As more shops close, criminals target the remaining stores more frequently, knowing police are stretched too thin to respond quickly. The NYPD isn't blind to this crisis. They've launched several initiatives to increase patrols in commercial areas, but with resources pulled toward high-profile locations and major chains, neighborhood coverage remains spotty at best. Some shop owners have formed their own watch groups, taking shifts to alert each other about suspicious activity. But these grassroots efforts can only do so much against the rising tide of crime. Business owners invest in security cameras and reinforced locks, But these measures do little to deter criminals who know the consequences of getting caught are minimal. The most frustrating part for many business owners isn't just the robberies. It's what happens after the criminals are caught. Those few thieves who are arrested often walk free within days, sometimes hours. This revolving door of justice has created an atmosphere of lawlessness that's destroying the fabric of New York's neighborhoods one shop at a time. The breakdown of law and order in New York City has reached a crisis point, particularly for small businesses. Recent statistics paint a grim picture. 77% of repeat offenders arrested for retail theft in 2023 were released back onto the streets within 24 hours. Security cameras across the city capture the same faces hitting the same stores week after week, creating an atmosphere of helplessness among shop owners. Mayor Eric Adams highlighted this revolving door of justice, pointing out that just 327 people were responsible for over 30% of all retail theft arrests in the city last year. But arrests mean little when criminals face no real consequences. The Manhattan District Attorney's Office now treats most shoplifting cases as misdemeanors, regardless of the value of stolen goods. This policy has emboldened thieves, who openly brag about their immunity from serious prosecution. For small business owners, this new reality has forced a dangerous shift in protocol. Many now instruct their employees not to confront shoplifters at all. The risk of violence isn't worth it when they know the thief will likely be back on the street immediately. Some stores have resorted to keeping their most frequently stolen items behind locked cases, but this hurts sales and frustrates honest customers who have to wait for assistance to buy basic necessities. The psychological toll on shop owners is immense. Many report feeling abandoned by the system they once trusted to protect them. When a bodega owner sees the same thief who robbed them yesterday walking freely past their store today, it shatters their faith in the justice system. This erosion of trust compounds another major challenge facing New York's small businesses, a tax system that seems designed to push them to the breaking point. The crushing weight of New York City's tax system is pushing small businesses to their breaking point. While major corporations employ teams of accountants to find loopholes and tax breaks, local shop owners face a bewildering maze of taxes that eat away at their already thin margins. A typical small business in NYC pays up to 40% more in combined taxes than similar shops in neighboring New Jersey or Connecticut. Let's break down the brutal reality. A small grocery store making $500,000 in annual revenue faces the standard 8.875% sales tax plus a commercial rent tax that can reach 3.9% of their rent in Manhattan below 96th Street. Then there's the property tax passed through by their landlord, which has increased by an average of 6% annually over the past decade. Add in unincorporated business tax, state and city corporate taxes, and various licensing fees. Suddenly, that $500,000 in revenue leaves barely enough to keep the lights on. The complexity of the tax code itself becomes another hidden cost. Small business owners often need to hire expensive tax professionals just to stay compliant. A simple mistake in filing can trigger audits and penalties that can devastate a small shop's finances. While large chains have departments dedicated to handling these complexities, the owner of your local bodega is often trying to make sense of tax regulations late at night after a 12-hour workday. Labor costs compound the tax burden. New York's high state and local income taxes mean business owners need to pay higher wages just so their employees can make ends meet. A shop owner needs to generate about $1.45 in revenue just to pay an employee $1 in take-home pay after accounting for all taxes and mandatory benefits. This forces many businesses to either cut staff hours or raise prices, both options that hurt their ability to compete. The real kicker? These taxes keep going up. In 2023 alone, small businesses faced increases in unemployment insurance taxes, worker compensation rates, and various licensing fees. Each increase might seem small on paper, but they stack up like a tower of bricks on the backs of struggling business owners. Many report spending more time dealing with tax compliance than actually improving their businesses. This suffocating tax environment creates a perfect storm when combined with other challenges. While shop owners struggle to pay their mounting tax bills, they're watching helplessly as their customers increasingly turn to online retailers who often find ways to avoid many of these local tax burdens altogether. The rise of online shopping has dealt a devastating blow to New York City's local shops, fundamentally changing how people buy everyday items. In 2023, online retailers captured 65% of all non-food retail sales in NYC, up from 38% just 5 years ago. Amazon alone now processes more daily transactions in the city than all local small businesses combined. Local shops are fighting an impossible battle against digital giants. When a neighborhood hardware store has to price a hammer at $28 to cover their rent, taxes, and security costs, they watch customers check their phones and order the same item online for $17 with free next-day delivery. This pattern repeats across every retail category, from household goods to electronics. The pandemic accelerated this shift dramatically. Many New Yorkers who had never shopped online before 2020 discovered the convenience of home delivery, and these habits stuck. A recent survey showed that 72% of NYC residents now prefer to buy non-essential items online rather than visit local stores. This behavioral change hits hardest in dense residential areas where small shops once thrived on regular foot traffic. Even the pharmacy business, long considered immune to online competition, is under siege. Amazon's expansion into prescription delivery services captured 12% of New York City's pharmacy market in just 18 months. Traditional drugstores that once relied on their prescription counters to subsidize their retail operations now face competition from tech giants who can afford to lose money on prescriptions to gain market share. The impact extends beyond just sales numbers. Local shops traditionally served as neighborhood information hubs and community gathering spaces. Every time an online purchase replaces a visit to a local store, these community bonds weaken a little more. The owner of a small bookshop in Queens reported that her regular customers who used to browse for an hour now spend just 10 minutes picking up pre-ordered books, if they come in at all. Weather patterns compound this trend. During the harsh New York winters or summer heat waves, more residents choose to shop from their couches rather than venture out to local stores. This creates a seasonal cycle where shops struggle to maintain consistent revenue throughout the year. Many report that their busy seasons are no longer busy enough to carry them through the slow periods. For most small shops, price matching online competitors would mean selling at a loss. Their operating costs are simply too high to compete with massive digital retailers who operate massive automated warehouses in low-cost areas. As more customers prioritize price over community loyalty, these local businesses face an existential choice: adapt drastically or disappear completely. The path to saving New York City's small businesses requires decisive action on multiple fronts. A comprehensive solution would need to start with commercial rent stabilization, setting reasonable limits on how much landlords can increase rents when leases expire. Cities like Paris and Berlin have successfully implemented similar programs, proving it can work in major metropolitan areas. Law enforcement needs urgent reform as well. The city could establish a dedicated small business protection unit staffed by officers specifically trained to prevent and respond to retail crime. Prosecutors must also revise their approach to retail theft, treating repeat offenders more seriously while maintaining programs for first-time offenders. This balanced approach has shown success in cities like Houston, where retail crime dropped 30% after implementing similar policies. The city's tax structure desperately needs simplification. Creating a small business tax hub, a one-stop service for tax compliance and assistance, could help shop owners navigate the system more efficiently. Reducing the commercial rent tax below 96th Street and offering tax credits for security improvements would provide immediate relief to struggling businesses. However, the likelihood of comprehensive reform appears slim. Political gridlock, budget constraints, and powerful real estate interests have historically blocked similar initiatives. Recent city council proposals for commercial rent control have stalled repeatedly, and police reform efforts face resistance from multiple stakeholders. If New York fails to act, the consequences could be severe. Current trends suggest that by 2028, up to 40% of the city's remaining small businesses could close. This would transform vibrant neighborhoods into retail deserts, with chain stores and empty storefronts replacing the diverse mix of local shops that define New York's character for generations. The city stands at a crossroads. It can either take bold action to preserve its small business ecosystem or watch as an essential part of its identity fades away. The loss of local shops wouldn't just change how New Yorkers shop, it would fundamentally alter how they live, interact, and experience their city. The question isn't whether New York can afford to save its small businesses, it's whether it can afford not to.